Child Show, your hour of encouraging talk and music. I am so excited about this week's edition of the show because I got to speak with live music producer Tom Jackson. And I know some of you have no idea who he is or what he does, but you will soon find out. He has worked with many major acts like Taylor Swift. I think you've all heard of her, and Jars of Clay, which they're a huge Christian band. If you haven't heard of them, definitely look them up. They're great. And they just help bands and musicians and solo artists communicate from stage, communicate with their audience, to love on their audience by, shaping the way their show looks visually. Some of you who have listened to the show from the beginning have probably heard me talking about him and some of the things that he teaches, like loving your audience. And he's indeed a Christian who just wants to see other musicians succeed, and not just Christian musicians, even the secular market. Like I said, Taylor Swift, he's worked with her quite a bit. So if you're a musician or a solo artist or a singer-songwriter, this interview is going to be just really important to you, I think. It really has helped me. It's changed my music career a lot. But if you're not a musician, that's okay. There's still something in this interview for you, because musicians and artists, we create music not only for ourselves, but for people, for you. I personally want to get on stage prepared and ready to impact lives. It's not about me, and expressing myself. It's communicating to you, the listener, the audience member, so that your lives can be touched in that moment, that 1 hour. And people like Tom Jackson help us artists do just that. And let me tell you, he's one of a kind. He's unique. I don't know many live music producers. We have many producers who create albums and work with songwriters and such to produce that kind of product, but not for the stage. He's not a choreographer. He doesn't teach acting. He's all about creating a visually stimulating performance, something that can help communicate what you're trying to sing about. So it's not choreography. So Tom Jackson is a live music producer whom I interviewed this past week. So if you're in a band, if you're a singer-songwriter, if you're in a cover band, or even a worship leader, this is definitely for you, even as the audience member. So I hope you enjoy. This is Tom Jackson. All right, first question. First off, I'm a big fan of your work, like huge. So it really has changed my perspective on the live show and the importance of it. I have your book, The Live Music Method, which I think should be required reading for every single performer. And I have your 7-disc DVD set titled All Roads Lead to the Stage. But for those listening who may not be familiar with what you do or what a live music producer does, can you give them a description of your unique job?
I'll do my best.
Okay.
Everyone knows they need a vocal coach
Yep.
or something like that, or a producer when they go in the studio, but they don't know that they need someone to help them with their live performance because it's never been brought up before. Everyone just thinks that you're just supposed to know this somehow magically, but it is a craft. Mm-hmm. So what do? I help artists connect with an audience emotionally. I guess what a lot of people say to me, oh, you're the moment guy. My big thing is that people go to experience moments. They don't go to hear songs necessarily. Now, some songs create moments, so our job is to help, but that's rare, where a song creates a moment. It happens, maybe an artist might have one that does that just because it's the right thing at the right time. But my job is to help people create moments with their show so that they connect emotionally with their audience. And you do that through a variety. I kind of have this analogy of it's like building a house. When you build a house, the first thing that you need is a vision for it. You need a plan. And this is where immediately I lose some of the artists, because they're like, no, dude, I don't plan. I'm spontaneous. A Christian artist, you got to be led by the Spirit, but there's a difference between being planning and vision and winging it. It's a different animal. Most people just wing it and make it up as they go, and consequently don't know why things work. Well, anyway, so the first part is vision, planning. You know, if you're going to build a house, you don't go out to the plot where it's going to be built when the builders drive up and go, okay, and make it up as you go. Here's how big I want the house. Here's the materials. No, you need an architect. And that's the first part of putting together a great show.
Right. So you heard it from Tom. People don't go to concerts to listen to songs. If they wanted to do that, then they can just turn on the radio, and listen to songs in their car, 3.5, 4-minute songs. People go to concerts to see people. It's not so much about the content as it is what's visually going on. And this is something I struggled with a lot early on in my career. I thought I had a great talent and that anyone who would hear me live would be my fan and I would get signed immediately, but it did not happen like that. And people say, you have to be at the right place at the right time, or, you need to do this many events and just get seen and heard, which is definitely good. And don't get me wrong, that's good to get yourself out there. But if what you're putting out there as your product is not good and it's not communicating with your audience, then it's only going to hurt you. If you're getting on stage and you're just winging it, that's going to hurt you. If you look uncomfortable and you look nervous on stage, that's going to hurt you too, no matter what, how many years you put into your talent, how great you think you are. I would get on stage and I would get really nervous. Granted, I was really young too. I was like 12 when I started performing, and I was just trying to get through my song. I was trying to get through my lyrics and hoping something would happen, something magical, and it really never did. Some people asked me to come back and sing, and I was on my worship team for a while, but if you're uncomfortable and nervous on stage, you're going to make your audience feel the same feelings. We are continuing in my interview with live music producer Tom Jackson, and I hope you got a, kind of a feel of who he is and what he does. And if you don't yet, you will, I promise. Or you can look him up at onstagesuccess.com, and I'll give that website to you again towards the end of the show. But right now, he's going to share with us the second step to take in building your live show as a performing artist. Check it out.
That's the first part. Second part is foundation. When you build a house, you need a great foundation. Mm-hmm. Without a good foundation, the house is going to fall down in a little while. And That's common with a lot of artists. Mm-hmm. Not that the house falls down, but they're just not, they never deal with some of the issues that are personal in their lives, in the sense of they're not confident on stage. I see a lot of people that, again, wing it. They're not confident. They don't know what they're doing. So part of my deal is, how do we deal with the person so that when they walk out on stage, they're not just confident, they have authority on top of it. And on top of authority comes the key, which is charisma. By far, the most attractive thing about people on this planet is when someone has charisma, people are drawn to them. Well, can you develop that charisma? The answer is yes. And in a half-hour interview, I can't go into all of that. It can be developed. It's a process. But it starts with confidence, taking risks. So I deal a lot with issues of confidence and authority and taking risks and dealing with fear. Some of the, I can't use names here, but two of the biggest stars I've worked with, they used to stand behind their guitar and play all night long.
Wow.
And were afraid to take their guitar off because that was a nice,
barrier between them and the audience.
Yeah,
kind of.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. It was a nice, like a security blanket.
Huh.
And now, the other side is sometimes hard to get the guitar back on them because they've developed so much confidence.
Wow.
Yeah, so confidence definitely, for me, what I've seen personally, comes from being prepared. And this is something I tell my voice students all the time. The girls that train under me, I tell them, you have to be prepared. You have to know your lyrics before you go on, know them so well you don't have to think about it anymore. And even if you do mess up, it's fine. know what you're going to do, know what you're going to say, know how to move your body. All those things build confidence. And just do it over and over and over again until it becomes second nature. And also, Tom was talking about building a foundation. And this is something I tell my students as well. For them, for singing, posture is the foundation of singing. If their posture is off, then everything else kind of falters. Their breathing fails. Their singing is affected by it. Not to say they're going to stop breathing or anything like that, but their breathing won't be correct, and then their singing will be affected by it as well. So as musicians, we need to have a vision first. Even pastors have a vision of what they want their services to be like. They prepare their sermon. They want the church to experience something and learn something each service, and they prepare in order to implement that. And of course, these things are and should be bathed in prayer. Take it to the Lord, ask him what he wants for your show and what he wants for your service, if you're a pastor. But most pastors I know, especially my own pastor, they prepare before a sermon and the service in general. I know my pastor, he doesn't just wing it on stage. I mean, there is some moments of spontaneity, but it comes from form first. And he's probably listening to the show right now, so love you, Pastor. So as a band or whatever you are, you need to have a vision for what you want your audience to experience from the moment you walk on stage all the way into the end to keep them captured and engaged. So let's get back to Tom, who's going to give us the third step in building your live show.
So the second part is the foundation. The third is literally after the foundation is laid. It's like you need materials, you need the tools, and you need the skill to put the house up. Well, when you're dealing with that on stage, you want to be creative visually. You don't want to just be do the same thing over and over. I ask every time I teach at a music conference, I ask this question. I say, do all your songs sound the same?
No.
And I can sense an incredulous, well, no. Vocally I do this, my guitar changes tone, I'm using a grand piano on this song, in the recording I'm using an electric one, I did it, all these different changes musically, rhythmically, and lyrically. But my question is, do all your songs sound the same? They're incredulous? No. Then I ask the question, well, if your songs don't all sound the same, why do they all look the same?
Right.
I can hear a pin drop every time. And I've asked this hundreds of times as I teach seminars. Because most artists realize they pretty much do the same thing from stage over and over again, from the same place on stage.
And it's just because of a lack of knowledge,
Correct.
What to do.
Correct. That's where it starts, knowledge, but then you got to work it out,
right.
too.
You got to apply the knowledge, yeah.
Yeah, then you got to go, that's what rehearsal's about. You got to go in and go, okay, wait, this song is really rocking. It's got high energy. That should look different than the song that's just a kind of a medium, middle of the road, which is different than a ballad. What you really want to do here, and it's not acting, is keep the integrity of the song. If this was a movie, and I know it's not, we're not acting, but if this was a movie, the action scene would look different than the love scene, than the tender scene. The dialogue scene would look different than something else. There would be changes. I use this analogy too. If we were, let's say you were playing tonight, and you got a friend who is a friend of yours who knows your music, and you get to the place, you realize there's a really cool little lighting, rig in the back for where you're singing, and you go to your friend, listen, you know my music, could you run lights for me? And they're scared, like, well, I don't know how to run lights. But you realize it's pretty simple. All there is to run the lights is 3 buttons. 3 big buttons that you push down on. One is a green button. The green button is a song where lights just kind of, pulse a little bit. They're not too exciting. They're not too, they're not too quiet, not too moody. It's just kind of like groove. Wow, look at those lights. Those are pretty cool. The red button. The red button is where you hit the red button and everything goes wild. It's exciting, spinning round and round. And then there's the blue button. And the blue button is real awesome, blue light, moody, smoke comes up from the floor. And that's all you have is 3 buttons. Now, your friend, who's not even a musician, could figure out that when the action is going on, it's a big rockin' song, they're not going to hit the blue button. They're going to hit the red button. When it's a ballad, they're not going to hit the red button. They're going to hit the blue button.
Right.
You're trying to keep the integrity of the song with the lights. Well, the concept remains true. But visually, with what you do with your body, how you use the stage.
It's not going to look the same one song to the next.
Exactly.
Right.
We're really creative with music, but we're not creative visually.
So that concludes the first half of my interview with live music producer Tom Jackson, and I hope you're really learning and want to apply some of the knowledge that he's given us already. So the first thing he gave us was vision and planning. What do you want your audience to experience? What do you want your show to look like? And I think this can be applied to many things. Whether you're putting on a youth group thing, a youth group event, or you're a pastor or worship leader, I think you can apply this knowledge to whatever it is you're doing. If you have a platform and you're in front of an audience or even a public speaker, there's so much you can take away from this and apply to what you're doing. I know Lou Giglio uses Chris Tomlin a lot to kind of just play in the background while he's speaking, and that adds so much more emotional impact to what he's talking about. He uses videos, he uses storytelling, he walks around, he knows when to move and when not to move when he's making a certain point. So this is not just for musicians and bands and solo artists. Build your foundation. That's number 2. Start on solid ground. Deal with personal issues. And lastly, materials. What can you use to make your presentation unique, your song unique? Will you have the audience participate? Will you add instruments? Will you take away instruments? Videos. People love videos, especially a well-done one. We want to be visually stimulated, and it can make a huge impact for your show. So I'm going to play my second half of my interview with live music producer Tom Jackson. He's talking about the visual aspect of performance and communicating your songs from the stage and the importance of it. And Tom has received a lot of resistance from musicians, bands, worship leaders even, in what he's trying to do. He understands that worship leaders, worship bands, they don't want to entertain necessarily, but there are things that you can apply to what you're doing musically and visually that could help your congregation enter into worship much more. So Tom's going to tell us now how to get those people to see the importance of live music production. Here's the second half of my interview.
Here's the reason it's important. 55% of communication is what the audience sees with their eyes.
Right.
30% is tone or emotion. 15% is the content inside a song. Because think about this, live, you really can't always hear the lyrics.
Right.
There's noise going on in the room. The sound system could be goofy. So we communicate non-verbally more than we communicate verbally from the stage. And the biggest problem with most, particularly indie artists, is that people don't know your music. They don't know you. They don't know your song. The concept of dating their audience versus being married to their audience.
Right.
Married is, when everybody knows your stuff, they sing along.
Sold millions of records.
They read your press clippings. They follow you on Twitter, on and on and on. You walk out on stage, Mr. or Mrs. Indie Artist, and they don't know you. So this is your way to develop, I would say a fan base, but make an impact and develop a fan base. And if your songs look the same, to somebody who doesn't know you, after about 3 songs, they start sounding the same because we hear with our eyes in this context. So you may be up on stage in your 5th song thinking, this is awesome. This song's about, something completely different than anything you've sang about all night. You're using a different kind of instrumentation, blah, 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 blah. But by the 5th song, a huge portion of your audience has checked out. Now, when I say they're checked out, they may be watching.
But they're not really watching.
But no, their mind's wandering.
Yeah.
They're preoccupied
Tuned
with
out.
something else.
Yep.
And here's the part that breaks my heart is so many artists have good music, have something to say, are interesting, but they don't know how to communicate that in a way that the audience gets it. I may love my wife, and I do.
I hope so.
But when I hand her a flower, I do something physical that shows that love. It communicates it. So are we doing the right things to communicate? Most artists think because they feel the music, everybody does.
Oh, right.
And it's just not the case. I may love my wife and have all these gooey feelings towards her, but if I don't communicate it in a way that she understands, then we miss the mark.
It's like the 5 love languages. Have you ever read that book?
I've heard about it, and I skimmed it, but I haven't read it.
It's all about communicating your love, not just feeling it, but communicating it.
So that your partner gets it.
Right.
Yeah, well, in this context, back to the dating married, your partner is your audience.
All right.
So
Gotta love your audience.
yeah, definitely love your audience.
Yes.
And love your audience enough to do the work so that in return it'll come back to you, because people who do this work develop the vision, plan the show, work on what's going on between their heads and their hearts emotionally before they walk out on stage so they have confidence, authority, and charisma, understand the technical skills of performing. And then the last part of this is after the house is built, you move in. And what I mean by that simply is you bring your personality to the show. You bring who you are, your music, your style. We have the whole concept of a house. A house is a house is a house. Some are bigger, some are smaller, but generally speaking, they have rooms, they have kitchen, they have. So how do you make it your own? By how you decorate it, the pictures you put up, the music that's being played inside, the books. Your personality goes into your house. Well, your personality should be also in your show.
So we have to love our audience. And by doing that, we have to communicate with them. We can't just have these feelings inside on stage and think that, everybody's into us or into the music or they get us. Tom said about being an independent artist. We don't really have a lot of radio play. We might have some success on YouTube, but we're not really known to the people we're playing for. And we have to figure out ways to visually communicate our songs to the audience who don't know our songs. So next up, Tom's going to talk about rearranging our songs to bring out the moments that are in there already.
Would you like to have Des play at your church, venue, retreat, or event? Well, she would love to come minister to you. Find out more and make your request. Go to DezChilds.com. That's DezChilds.com.
So we're talking to Tom Jackson, live music producer from Nashville, Tennessee. And now he's going to explain a little bit about rearranging your songs to kind of crack open the moments that are there so you can visually communicate to your audience and just love on them, because it's all about your audience. It's all about your fans and creating new fans. And we can't do that if we don't make an emotional connection with them. So he's going to talk about that, and the result of working on your show is just incredible. He's going to talk a little bit about that and just how this can really impact your career and impact live. So here's Tom Jackson.
And one of the key things on this, and this is one of the things that we do the most with, is we rearrange the songs so that the artist can pour their personality into the show. Now, let's start with themes. Themes are the musical things that are going on inside your songs, or the lyrical themes. In other words, you got a very cool vocal line going on. We need to develop it. So we rearrange the song. You got a cool rhythmic thing going on. You need to develop. You got a cool message thing. You need to develop it. With a song, with a story or something, verbally. The idea is to develop the themes that are inside your song so that and by developing those themes, you now start pouring your personality into the show. Now people come to see you, because people don't come just to hear music. They think they do, but they actually go to see people. People come to see people.
Right, and that was one of my other questions was, for people listening who aren't musicians or in a band or an artist, like, how does this impact them? As the listener, like going to a concert, they have certain expectations.
They do.
Correct?
They do. They have expectations.
Right.
And when those expectations are met, they become fans.
Right.
And they'll come back, and they'll drag people with them, and they'll buy product. When this is done correctly, everybody wins. Not just the artist.
Right.
Though the artist, I've never seen when someone applies this stuff, and I know this sounds, I've got people that tell me that just sounds impossible, Tom. But when you develop these things correctly, I've seen merchandise sales go up over 600% before.
Wow. That's
now, people will
quite a
say,
jump.
okay, you had me, but, I thought maybe if it went up 15%, 20%, I'd believe you. But I'm not kidding. It's because the connection between the artist and the audience is that amazing. That is the artist and audience experience, where there is a love fest, in a sense, going on in the room. They're connecting emotionally. And again, people come to see people, and they have expectations. Audiences want to be captured and engaged.
Right.
They want to experience moments.
And this applies to worship leaders too. And I know you get a lot of resistance from them, right?
I get some resistance.
Yeah.
And then they walk away and go, "Oh, I'm not sure what I could do," because you've got to jump through some hoops, obviously.
Right.
In a church situation with pastors and people understanding what you're trying to accomplish. Everyone has to be on board.
Right. It's not. Yeah, I know the worship leaders are a little hesitant because we don't entertain. It's about the Holy Spirit and being led. And I see that so much in the Christian world. And I know your 30 minutes is up, but they just want to wing it. They don't want to prepare. They don't even want to practice. And it saddens me because then we get on stage and everybody's just staring at us. Nobody is led into worship. And it's just a sad, sad thing. And I think we can create an experience for them where the Lord's presence fills the room so much more just by working at it. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Well, by putting words on a screen above the group, which is one way that people do it, that doesn't do it. Now, am I opposed to putting words on a screen? No, but every song, yeah. And it's what we call, again, you have to engage the congregation. You have to engage the congregation to lead them. And if you don't, you just play some songs, put some words on the screen, and hope it works. Now, if you're teaching them a new song, that's a perfect time to put words up on the screen.
Huh.
So we're going to come back to Tom for one last segment. He's going to make an appeal to musicians, bands, and worship leaders to apply his method. Now, go out and buy his book, The Live Music Method, and just see for yourself that this really has a lot of truth to it and can really change the way you look at your career or, just worship leading in general. Go to onstagesuccess.com where there's tons of resources, videos. They really work with you, Tom and his staff, to help you achieve your goals and dreams for your music career by helping you with the live presentation, because that's where it's at. If you're a musician, especially an independent one, you have to perform in order to make money, in order to make a living at this. Unless you're a songwriter and you just want to sell your songs, that's a totally different market. But for a low monthly cost, there's a thing that you can get called a backstage pass, and it's something that I have and I use a lot. They don't send you a physical pass, but you have the ability to learn from them and dig a little bit deeper and be a part of webinars and ask them questions. And so I definitely recommend visiting his website, onstagesuccess.com. Before we get to Tom's last segment, when we're going to play Jackie Velasquez, and the song that I'm going to play for you, called On My Knees, was the first Christian song that I remember being impacted by. My mom gave me the song on a cassette. Yeah, I was born in 1986, so I got the whole taste of the non-digital era, payphones and beepers and such. But I remember playing this song just over and over again in my room growing up, and me and my sister got really into Christian music because of my mom. So thanks, Mom, if you're listening. Right now, we're going to get back to Tom for a last appeal to musicians everywhere. I really hope you've enjoyed everything that he has had to share with us, and that you'll look him up at onstagesuccess.com and maybe even bring one of his associates or him to help you with your live show.
I know some of you have, you're artists. You've been given this gift. Use it wisely. Develop the skills to help you communicate with your audience so that you have a full impact. Just because you feel the music, just because you sense the presence, just because your adrenaline is going, just because you're the one on stage singing your songs, it does not mean your audience gets it. That is one of the biggest misnomers I get, and it breaks my heart, because this is not a woe is me, that, oh my gosh, people don't get it, I guess I'm going to go work at 7-Eleven. I have more than enough work. It's what breaks my heart is watching artists who have the ability to do it and they don't do it. It's like watching a great football player or basketball player who has not done taken the time to develop the skills, so they end up getting up to a certain level and they'll never get past it because they have not done the work on the things that will make the difference. And it's not another record. It's not another song. It's not another vocal thing. This oftentimes is it. So, well, thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you for coming on the Des Child Show. We appreciate it.
And I'll see you in a couple weeks, I guess.
Yes, we'll set up another date, and we'll have some questions for you from our listeners and from me too. And thank you so much. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Tom is going to be speaking at a Christian Musicians Summit I will be attending with my manager, Cody, and my husband, Stephen Childs. So we're really excited about that. That's May 1st through the 3rd in Buffalo, New York. So I'll be taking some courses on songwriting and attending Tom's seminar about the 4 important things that you should know about performance. I'm really excited to actually meet him. But if you want to call into the Des Child Show, if you have a question for Tom Jackson, give me a call at 1-856-244-1503. You can look me up on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all those good social media things at Des Childs, DEZCHILDS. We would love to hear from you. We're probably going to have Tom on again in the future. I hope so. I would love to talk to him again. But if you have any questions for him, we would love to hear from you, and I will ask them for you. All right, God bless, and have a great rest of your day.